everybody. This is the Dead Money with Dan Arfin podcast. We are freshly off the Super Bowl. It's my favorite day of the year. Hope you all enjoyed that. I certainly did. I had the Seahawks money line and the under of 45.5. I, of course, had my balls in my throat at the end of the game watching that fucking total nearly go over. And look, I don't bet anything significant. I bet very small. I just want to sweat. I just want some fun. But if that game had gone over, I mean, that would have just been more tilting than losing like a 5K pot to a one-outer. Because it's just the fucking principle of sports betting and how tilting and just savage it really is all the time. I mean, I know it's hard to go wire to wire on a sports bet, but oh my God, that game was complete dog shit for like at least 3 quarters. Nobody could do anything. And then all of a sudden, points just start piling in and piling in and piling in. And I didn't have any concerns about it until after that pick six. I thought it was a fumble six. Apparently, it was a pick six. Once that pick six made the game 29-7, and now I can only take another 9 points, and there's all this time left. Like, there's a path towards this game going over now. I mean, I know it probably won't, but there's a path for it. And fans all the time just jump to conclusions. A game could be 14-0 in the first quarter or like 21-10 in the first half. And everyone's like, oh, it's over, it's over, it's over. The game is never fucking over, people. I mean, I know sometimes the team that gets out ahead, usually they win. But oftentimes, more often than not, the other team at least comes back and like makes it a game. Gives the idea that maybe they'll win. So you just got to be patient and watch these games because professional sports is good until the last drop. So anyway, I think for this week's show, I'm just going to point out and poke fun at all of the bird brain things I heard spoken this week at the poker table. Some of them, maybe even in all of them, occurred within the context of a hand history in some way, but either way, it's always kind of funny when I just like come out of nowhere and zap somebody with some smart-ass remark because most of the time I am totally silent. But when I hear something stupid, I just cannot help myself. I cannot help but almost like lash out and rip apart and poke holes and highlight every ounce of just how idiotic what we all just heard was. And I think maybe it's because when these people say these things, sometimes, not all, but sometimes, they say it as if they've just preached the most profound exhibition of gospel you've ever heard. It reminds me of the first time I ever took mushrooms. I was 28 and I was in South Florida at a friend's place. I think there were 5 of us. The onset of the mushrooms effects had finally arrived, and we're all just goofing around in the kitchen. And I was sort of standing by myself a short distance from everybody else, and I started looking at the oven. And then I somehow got this visual of the oven opening and seeing a person exit the oven. And I thought to myself, well, that is not something that should ever happen, and that I better tell everybody. So when there was a brief moment of silence, I said, it's a good thing that nobody has come out of the oven. Then everybody looks up. There's a brief pause. And then they all start laughing. And then I added, and that's the way it should be. And at the time I said this, it felt really profound and powerful. And like I just said something that was like really important. And that's how these people act at the poker table, except something tells me they're not all on mushrooms every single time they speak. But all right. That's enough, so let's just get into the comments, regardless if every last one of them was intended to sound smart. So there's this reg I see sometimes, and he has a vlog, and apparently it's relatively popular, certainly more popular than this stupid show. I don't like this guy. I used to dislike him a lot more because I always found him to be a most obnoxious and cocky jerk-off who, like, every time he either wins a pot or gets some sort of result he wanted, he just sort of like gyrates his head and body in such a manner that suggests he wants you to notice that he's very pleased with himself and that you should be just as impressed. Now, it's not as bad as it used to be with this guy, but it's still there. And then he gets into a pot with this fish who was on a losing rush, and it was probably down to like maybe $300 or $400 when this hand began. I know it was a single raise pot to $20. I don't know if it was multi-way or not. I want to say that it was, but either way, flop comes Queen Jack 5, 2 diamonds. The fish probably bet like 40 or $60. It gets to the vlogger, and he puts the fish all in. It's a big raise compared to the pot, but like I said, the fish wasn't that deep. The fish snap calls, the board bricks out, the vlogger shows ace-jack offsuit for second pair, and then the fish turns over his losing hand, which was ace-5 of diamonds. So he had a pair in the nut flush draw, and he missed. So ace-jack was a little ahead, and he held up. But then the vlogger, as he's taking the pot, he says to the table, "Perfectly analyzed." Who fucking says that? Perfectly analyzed? You have a fish who's spewing left and right and is getting desperate to just get his stack in somehow. You decide to overjam second pair top kicker on a draw-heavy board. You get called by a high-equity hand that had a clear-cut price to call off. It loses. And now you're giving yourself this big pat on the back as if you have just revolutionized poker in a way that no one ever has. It wasn't enough for him that he just won the money. He needs everyone to be reminded what his analysis of the situation was, as if that wasn't crystal clear already based on the action he took and the hand he turned over. Now, I didn't say anything to this. No one did. But then about 15 minutes later, it folds to me in the small blind. I raise to 20 with queen nine off, and another fish defends the big blind. I flop the world. I think it came ace king 5 rainbow. I check. Big blind bets 25. I fold, and the big blind shows he had top pair with ace-9 offsuit. First I said to him, "Nice hand." Then a few seconds later, I announced to the table, "Perfectly analyzed." Just to let the vlogger know, I still think he's a moron because I don't think this guy ever had any trouble in deducing that I don't like him. As into himself as he is, I think he had also perfectly analyzed my feelings toward him all these years. So after I said perfectly analyzed, a few people laughed, and then he even kind of smirked too. I mean, not in like a combative way, just more like, "Oh yeah, I just said that." Perfectly analyzed. I mean, look, I know the guy wins. Whatever he does, it works. Okay. But you know something? Both he and I are just 2-5 schmucks, alright? And while it's not easy to win at any limit of poker anywhere, no less crush it, at the end of the day, I am just a 2-5 schmuck. You zoom out just a little bit, and there's a whole world of poker players out there playing higher than 2-5, or a lot higher, whether it's online or live, of guys who put guys like me and my perfect analysis to absolute shame. Now, it's good to feel proud of whatever work you do, but it's also good to remember, I'm just trying to make money here, but that I ain't all that. I am a 2-5 schmuck, and so is he. Period. End of sentence. So this next one came a few days later. I was in a golden spot. We got a total whale whose VPIP was 100% and calling a flop bet with almost any 2 cards as well. And calling just about any opening size preflop too. Not that any of the other players were exploiting this, but he was. So then this blowhard white guy in his 50s sits down. He's something of a jolly character, seemed excited to be playing. Pleasant-natured. Then not long after he gets there, I open a hand, and I get 3-bet by some reg, and I don't know what I had, but it was nothing special, so I fold. Then the guy says to me, "Damn, this is a pretty tight table. You played one hand in the last hour and got raised." This guy had pretty much just joined the game. I mean, the most he was there was like 20 minutes, and I think it was less than that. And when people say these things to me, I usually need a few seconds to absorb it. I don't shoot right back at them because I have to get over the shock first at just how unintelligible of a remark you just made. I said to him, what did you get here? 15 minutes ago? And he just laughed and that was it. But it's just what? An hour? The guy played 1.5 orbits with us. How could that have felt like an hour to him? It always blows me away at just how disconnected people so often are as to how much time has passed. We've played maybe 10 or 12 hands. And I guess this is the first one where I did something. And it's amazing that people assume you must be a huge nit because this is the first time you're in there. But it's just dude, I'm not getting dealt King 10 suited every hand. And now that I finally have pocket queens or better, I'm finally giving this a shot. So as I said, this whale was calling all kinds of sizes with any two. And I was exploiting this. Probably not even as much as I should have been. I was opening to like 30 or 35 and like 60 or 65 when he straddled, but I probably should have been going at least 50 when he wasn't straddling. And it amazes me that there's other regs in the game, and they see that I'm doing this, and they see that it's working, but they all still continue to just open to $15 with their entire range. And it's just like, are you just not paying attention, or are you just so attached to this little box you live in that you cannot wrap your head around the idea of, hey, maybe it's a good idea to exploit this whale by upping my opening size? This is a great example of why the 2-5 field is so soft, because even these quote-unquote winning players are not comfortable or even clued in as to just how easily you can exploit a player giving this much action. One of the rec players, go figure, finally caught on, and he started opening to 60, and the whale was calling it. And then some shit Euroreg folds his small blind, but before he does, he's like, 60? What is this, a 10-20 game? No, it's not a 10-20 game, but it is an amazing spot. And obviously I'm glad that until this one rec player started bombing pre, that no one else was taking advantage of this obvious, clear as fucking day opportunity. But it's just like, it's one thing to stick with your oversimplified and thoroughly unimpressive strategy, but then to be like critical of the strategies of others when it's clearly being quite effective. You really wonder sometimes if anyone is ever going to get any better. And these days, I'm not thinking they will. I have a feeling that the skill level for a ton of players, at least in the 2-5 field, is pretty much capped right now and is not going to improve on any level worth talking about anytime soon. Once in a while, you come across a banger who can really play and think outside the box and be aggressive, but those are few and far between. And most of the other so-called competent players are just clinging with their life to their niche strategy of don't do anything except try and make the nuts. And if that's not working, then I guess that means play more hands. So into the next session. It folds to my button. I make it 20 with King Jack of Spades. The small blind calls, and we're heads up. Now, the small blind is this really nitty player who game selects very aggressively, which is smart, but he's always just bad for the game. He sounds like Paul Giamatti. If you ever saw that movie Sideways, he's the main protagonist. And he also talks a lot, too, like he's this really smart player. Like I heard him say once, "The button is the most overrated position in poker." Okay, thank you for that. I'm so touched by that statement, I'm not even going to ask why it is you think that. I'm just going to accept it as a rock-solid truth. I also remember once, a long time ago, I raised under the gun with, I don't know what. He called, it went multi-way, I flopped nothing, and then I think he won on the flop. Then he said to me after, "Yeah, I flattered you with queens even though I knew you didn't have kings or aces." And I didn't exactly question him, but I just said, "You knew I didn't have kings or aces?" He's like, "Yeah," just your body language. Oh, okay. So an apparent soul read was made based on my body language after my initial opened to $20 under the gun that I cannot have kings or aces. Okay, good job. So anyway, I open King Jack suited. He flats the small blind. Flop is Ace King 8 rainbow. I have the backdoor flush draw. He checks. I almost check back, but I bet $10 just because he's never going to start probing the turn with an underpair or anything. I'm not going to get anything from him, so I'll just spit on this pot to end it now, or maybe he'll call with something weird that's either slightly better or slightly worse. Instead, he raises to 40, and I was going to fold. My first thought was just fold, but then I thought, well, maybe because I bet so tiny, he could be making some silly check raise with ace queen or ace 10. So I finally 3-bet bluff a flop with a blocker to top two pair and the backdoor flush draw and the backdoor straight draw, making it 110, and he snap jams 1,000. So after I fold, then someone says to him, "Nice bet." And then he says, "Yeah, had no choice. Had to protect my hand." Protect your hand? The flop was Ace King 8 rainbow. What exactly do you need to protect your hand from? If what? If a 10 Jack or Queen hits the turn, that means what? I'll have always drilled the nut straight? I mean, the guy's jam here is total suicide. I assume he has a set of 8s, but whatever he had, if I can call his jam, he's crushed. Now, it's true, if I had a set or top 2, I'd have never 3-bet the flop, but that's not the point. The point is, he said with absolute conviction that his only choice was to free roll himself by 4-bet overstuffing the flop for like 3.5x pot or whatever the fuck it was. Now, if he had just called the 110, is there any possibility of me going crazy on the turn, whether it helps me or not? I mean, maybe, probably not, but there's a non-zero chance of it. There is 0 chance I call his jam with something worse, but there is a non-zero chance I talk myself into bluffing the turn because, hey, I'd already done it on the flop by 3-betting. So who's to say I won't continue to try and blast my way out of this? I had to protect my hand. This guy wins, too. I mean, he's not a pro. I don't see him year-round, but he is in Vegas a lot, so okay. Later that week, there's a raise under the gun to 15. There's a call on the button. I 3-bet ace, queen of hearts from the big blind. Long story short, my hand didn't improve. I don't know if I should have bet or not, but everybody checked all 3 streets. But as the button was about to check down the river, he says to the dealer, I hope I have the best hand. And he did have the best hand. But then I said to him after, I said, if you had not said that, I wouldn't have never known that you had hoped you have the best hand. And the dealer laughed, and a couple other players laughed. But the guy I was speaking to, he had I think he had 1 earbud in. He just said what? And then I repeated it. And he's looking around, he's like, huh? He doesn't get it. I'm being so fucking dry and sarcastic. It's going so far over his head. I mean, I just said, okay. And I didn't want to repeat it another time. I just let it go. But what made him say that? I mean, it's like, I know it's a harmless statement. I don't need to go after his nuts for this, but it's like, why are you saying you hope you have the best hand? Why are you saying that? What makes you think that you need to say that as if, why are you saying that? I'm going crazy again just thinking about it. Why did he fucking say that? If he hadn't said that, what? We're going to think that he was going to hope he's going to lose? Ugh. Next hand I see on this table, I wasn't involved, but it was a 3-bet pot, and it went bet, bet, bet. Flop was 5-5 king. Big blind bets. The turn is another 5, he bets. River's another 5. 4 5s on the board, plus the king. The big blind goes all in for 2.5 times the pot. Okay, yeah, this guy's really going to think you're trying and push him off a chop and that you don't have an ace. Mm-hmm. So this man, this well-dressed white guy, he just laughs. He's like, huh, all right. Guess I can't call. So he folds. And then he says after, he's like, yeah, I can't call with anything out there. He's like, I'd have called with an ace. As soon as he said I'd have called with an ace, and I've been dead silent again. As soon as he said that, I said, oh, really? You'd have called with the nuts. And then people laugh. The dealer laughs. And he looks at me like he wasn't offended or anything, but he's just kind of confused. Why are you making fun of me? It's like, I'm making fun of you because you just stated the obvious. Just like the other guy before, saying he hopes he has the best hand. People do this all fucking day long. They state the fucking obvious. And these are people who think well of themselves. People who play all the time. And I can't fucking resist because you guys do nothing but state the obvious. And you act like it's gospel. And you're just all bad nits. Stating the obvious all day long. This is why I can't sit still. Then later at this table, I come back. I miss my blind. I buy the button. And then the guy in seat 1 says to the dealer, he's like, oh, I thought I was under the gun because he folded at a turn. And the dealer said no. He's like, he bought the button. And then the guy says, oh, he's like, so I'm missing my under the gun because he's going to be big blind the next hand. Since obviously the guy to my left is the under the gun this hand since I bought the button. This guy is making multiple references to the fact that he's not going to get to be under the gun. The dealer tells him, he's like, well, the under the gun is the worst position in poker. He's like, yeah, right, no, but I'm not going to get to be under the gun. And then after hearing this 3 times, I just shouted, poor guy. And a couple players laugh. I'm like, Jesus, you're so wrapped up. You don't get to be the under the gun. It's not like you're missing your fucking button. Jesus, why is this guy talking about this? I know it's harmless, but why is he talking about it? Why does this need to be mentioned? So later this session, man, we got a whale for the ages. This man had kind of like a hillbilly look, a hillbilly voice. He's got his woman behind him. We see this fish stack off and then reload 500. And then that same fish opens to 50. And the whale, who we didn't know was a whale yet, now we know is a whale after this hand, he 3-bets to 200. The guy who made it 50, snap goes all in, gets snap called, and the whale turns over ace-10 offsuit and says, do you have a big pair? Well, the other guy did not have a big pair, but he did have ace-king, but ace-king lost because ace-10 made a flush. All right, so we know we're in a good spot at least. This whale's got about 2,000. And then shortly after that, we get an under-the-gun raise to 15. I call next action with pocket fours. Hillbilly calls. There's one more call. The flop comes 8-6-4 rainbow. The razor bets 25. I call. Hillbilly makes it 75. There's a fold. The razor, who bet 25, calls the 75. I back raise to 290. The whale says, "Rrrr," lets out this big grunt, and he calls. The other guy folds or heads up. Pot's got around 700. Turn is a king. 2 clubs now. We're still pretty deep, because I was about 2K when this hand started as well. I bet 550. The whale jams. All right, call. River's a deuce. Then he says, you got me. All right, that's nice to hear. He turns over 8-6 offsuit. So he flopped top 2 pair, raised flop with it after a bet and call in front of him, calls my pretty big back raise, then jams over my pretty big turn bet, is called quickly, and at this point realizes that his middle 2 pair can't be good. So he knew that. But I don't know. What did he think was going on before then? I mean, it was just, the whole thing was just all over the place. Like, when he said, you got me, I figured he was bluffing, right? But he wasn't exactly bluffing. I mean, I guess he was trying to end the hand. I guess he just didn't want to see a bad river and not know what to do. So he just jammed it in there, but knows once he gets snap called, he knows he's beat now. But then he goes on. I mean, look, I know I only had bottom set here, but like, look, you have to stack off with this guy to bottom set, and you don't have to worry about it if he has you beat. If he had me beat, he probably goes all in on the flop after I made it 290, but that's not the point. I'm calling off anyway. When you see what this guy does with ace-10 offsuit, when you get into a spot like this with a hand like this, you just got to go with it, okay? And I know plenty of the other regs would have stacked off with this hand too, or been willing to stack off with it, but they would have gone through a whole fucking tank and put on this whole chauffeurs of, they're not folding. They would have just knit rolled the fuck out of him, but they're not folding because they want to save face in case he does have them beat. But it doesn't matter. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to go with this hand. And I've said this before, the speed of how fast you make a decision is suggestive of your level. If you don't snap call with this hand, that is suggestive of your level. But Hillbilly says to me after, and he wasn't criticizing, he took the loss fine, he said nice hand, he wasn't a jerk, but he just said a few times, he's like, wow, he's like, you just snap called it off there with trips, like with the straight staring you in the face in a higher set, just snapped it off with the low trips. He kept calling my set of 4s trips, and I'm not really saying much, I'm just like, yeah, But then he says after, this was the line of the week, he said, hey, I gotta give you credit, man, you gotta let your nuts hang. And I don't even think he meant that as like a play on word where it means 2 things, talking about my nuts, my nuts, but also my nutted hand, right? I mean, it wasn't the nuts, but, for all practical purposes it was. But yeah, gotta let my nuts hang. Okay, that was pretty. So now we get to the weekend, and Saturday was just this frustrating day. I mean, it was one of those sessions where it just feels like you're getting owned in every situation. I mean, you probably aren't, but like it just feels that way because it's just every time you do something, whack, you get whacked over the head for it. This card falls, this guy raises you, this guy does this guy does that. I mean, it's just one thing after another. So then we got a straddled pot. We got a round of straddles going. We got a couple of limps from early position. Then we got a raise to 50. I called the button. I think there was another call. Then there was another call. And then it gets to the last player to close the action, who's like looking out at the table, looking at his stack, and then he drops in $80 of chips. He puts in some quarters. So it looks like he's trying to limp raise. If he is limp raising, he's got to make it 90. given that he's already made it 80, he now should be held to make it 90. But then he says to the dealer, he's like, oh, I thought it was 80. Well, the dealer had never said it was 80, and this dealer is not very competent, but she did not say it was 80. And, I mean, look, I know some people are new to poker, or they don't play very often. How much fucking experience do you need to realize what the bet is? There's 4 fucking players out there with $50 in front of them. And a couple of them have 2 green chips in front of them. A couple others have, the 2 short stacks of red. But it's like, oh my God. I mean, it's right fucking in front of you in 4 different places. Where did you come up with that you thought it was $80? So they get a floor man over asking, do we have to hold this guy to $90 now to make it a full limp raise since he made it more than half? And the floor man should hold this guy to a limp raise. I mean, if I was the open raiser, I would have been adamant saying, hey, come on, he fucking threw in more than half. You got to hold him to it. Fuck this. It's not my fault he's not paying attention. It's not my fucking fault he's clueless. I mean, this is not being unfriendly or throwing the book at somebody. This is the game. There are rules for a fucking reason. Now, in this situation, I'm hoping they just let him be nice, and they did. They let that stand as a call, which is total bullshit. That needs to be a raise. I'm sorry. And if the guy gets punished for it, too fucking bad. The moral of the story is pay attention. There are 4 fucking players out there with $50 in front of them. If you can't figure out that the bet is $50, then ask the fucking dealer. I mean, how do you make that mistake? I mean, I don't care how inexperienced you are. I don't care how little you do this. How do you make that mistake? Now, if you're going to say I should fight for this rule to be upheld when it works against me, I mean, no. I'm only going to do that when it works for me. I'm there for myself. But look, if the floor man called it a limp raise and made him go 90 and then the raiser comes over and goes all in or something, I mean, okay. That's the way it is. So then there's another spot from this game. I wasn't in this hand, but we have this really, really huge fishy player. I mean, he doesn't buy in deep. He just dusts it off. And there was a situation where the board was like ace, 7, 5. I don't know what order, but the board was ace, 7, 5. No flush draws. It was like a bet of 60 and a call or something like that. And then the whale check raises all in to make it 363 total. So 303 on top. One player folds, and it gets to the button, who's this other fish, and he's tanking. He's got earbuds in as well. And then the whale, who was all in, their heads up, first he says to the dealer, he's like, can we talk? Meaning he wants to start some table talk. The dealer doesn't understand anything. So then he just asks the player, he's like, can we talk? The button says, what? Doesn't take his earbuds out. The whale repeats, can we talk? The button says, what? He asks him a third time. He says, can we talk? He says, what? Finally, I shouted, talk! Jesus, take the fucking earbuds out when someone is trying to talk to you. We see this all the time. People who have either earbuds or headphones and they can't fucking hear anything. Just take the fucking headphones off. I mean, is that so fucking difficult? So the button is tanking. He's still tanking. It's taken forever. I call time. And I never do it in a dramatic fashion. I very quietly get the dealer's attention and tap my wrist. So we get a floor man over, and now another player asks. And this was the guy who was complaining about missing his under the gun the other day. It's this guy again. He says, wait, who called time? Did a player call time? He was just confused as to what was going on. He wasn't objecting. He was just trying to understand what happened. He says, did someone call time? And another player says, yeah, I think someone did. And then I just said to him, as I said, yeah, I called time. I was like, you don't have to scream it at the top of your lungs. You just got to do this. I show him the wrist signal. So, all right, no big deal. The guy who's thinking about it, he realizes this is going on for a while. When time is called, he's like, yeah, he nods his head. He's thinking and he's thinking and he's thinking, and he calls. And then the river is a 4. And then the guy who had been tanking and finally called, he hasn't even seen the whale's hand yet. But he immediately says, I'm so sorry. And he turns over pocket 4s for a full house, which won and sucked out against ace 10. The guy had trip aces. But just this whole sequence of events was just now met with this huge contradiction at the end of everything. The purpose of you calling was because you thought you had a better hand with pocket fours. You thought on ace 7-5 rainbow, this multi-way action going on, this check raise all in on the turn, you thought pocket fours were the best hand, so you called. So if that's what you think, then why are you instantly apologizing when you hit this card that will probably give you the winner, but it might not? It would have been perfect poetic justice if the whale had ace-4 specifically. Guy calls it off, drawing dead, but hits the case-4 anyway. But now he assumes he's won, even though there's a chance he's lost, but he's assuming that he needed that card to win after he just spent forever and a day tanking to call it off with this hand. A hand that blocks straight draws, by the way, as if his hand wasn't bad enough to begin with. On top of it, it also blocks bluffs. Now, I never say anything when people get insanely lucky against me or just play a really stupid hand that somehow won. I keep my mouth shut. But I wasn't the one who lost this pot. And if you're going to needle somebody, it might as well be the guy who won, because you'd think he would take it well, and he did. He's a friendly guy. I've seen this guy before, but I said to him after that, since I was having a bad day, I said to him, tough game. And he laughs. He's like, brutal game. And it's just this was one of the all-time low moments I've ever seen where a player just could not even give his money away. This call-off is probably almost as bad as just jamming pre in the dark. And these are the same people who wonder why they lose. There's a lot of fish who know they're fish, but there's a lot of other fish who don't think they're fish. At least not in Vegas. They make calls like this, and they wonder why they lose. And when they call it off, it's he knew he was making a completely idiotic decision, yet for some reason he still insisted he make it because he could not wrap himself around the emotional letdown of folding. And we know that happens to all of us. You just get stubborn sometimes for some reason. But of all the hands and spots to ever get stubborn with, it makes me think of what I said the other day. This is why sometimes taking shots against whales in bigger games you don't normally play in isn't always the sharpest move, because a lot of players are going to have a hard time resisting paying off these whales when they're beat. And if you can't make good folds against the whales, then your edge against them is a whole lot smaller than you think it is. This guy couldn't even lay down an underpair, a hand that blocks bluffs, a hand that loses to bluffs. The guy could just be dumping it in there with a 5 or pocket 6s or who knows what the fuck. These pocket 4s are occasionally going to be drawing dead. And if they are live, they only have 2 outs. And if it is somehow ahead, it is going to lose on a lot of rivers. So it is just truly flat out unbelievable. But yet another great reminder as to just how bad people are capable of playing. Holy shit. And why did he say, I'm sorry? He didn't even know he won yet. But why do people say they're sorry? I always say to them, are you sorry enough to give it back? Then stop saying you're fucking sorry, because you don't mean it. I know in some way you probably feel you feel bad that this guy lost, but how bad do you really feel? If you feel bad, then how is telling him you feel bad going to make him feel better? You want to make him feel better? Give him the fucking money. Then he'll feel better. You're allowed to win, man. You're allowed to play stupid, and you're allowed to win because of it. But why are you saying you're sorry? You don't have to explain anything. But I just couldn't get my head around the fact that, he spends all this time tanking with this hand, calls, hits this card, and isn't thinking what he should be thinking. Oh, well, if I wasn't winning before, I'm probably winning now. It just blew my mind. That hand just blew my mind. It's he knew he made the wrong decision. And then he gets this river and assumes there's no way he could have lost. There's no way the guy could have ace-4. There's no way he could have ace-7 or 7s or 5s. God. It inspires a lot of hope, though. So when you're running bad, having a tough day or whatever, you see stuff like this, it reminds you everything will be okay. So, all right, that'll do for this week and football season. On to baseball season. It's in the air. I can't wait to scream at the TV all day long, every day, watching the Mets fuck off another season. But all right. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next time.